Have you ever questioned the historical accuracy of the Old Testament? Indeed, the Old Testament is not a straightforward historical account. Instead, it's a fascinating collection of texts that have been edited and redacted over centuries. These texts, written by various authors, have undergone a great deal of transformation, often reflecting the theological and political agendas of their times. The stories we read today have been shaped and reshaped, often to serve specific purposes beyond mere historical recounting. In many instances, these redactions have been employed to legitimize political claims, bolster nationalistic sentiments, or illustrate theological themes. This complex process of reworking and reinterpreting makes the Old Testament a rich tapestry of narratives, but it also raises questions about its historical accuracy. After all, when we delve into these ancient texts, we must ask ourselves, so, can we take everything written in the Old Testament as a factual historical record? Consider the accounts of Joshua's conquest and Numbers 31. These narratives, vibrant and rich in detail, paint vivid pictures of war and victory, yet when we delve deeper, we find that they may be more ideological constructs than factual records of historical events. Let's take a closer look. Joshua's conquest of Canaan, for instance, is a tale of sweeping victory and divine intervention. Yet, this narrative is largely considered mythical or exaggerated. Why, you ask? Because it served a purpose: to legitimize Israelite claims to the land and to bolster nationalistic sentiments among the people. Then we have Numbers 31, the account of the Israelites' slaughter of the Midianites. Again, this narrative is viewed more as a theological tale than a historical event. The purpose here was likely to justify Israelite actions and portray divine approval for their conquests. Now you might be wondering, where is the evidence for these grand conquests? That's where things get interesting. Despite the detailed descriptions of destruction and conquest in these texts, there is little to no archaeological or historical evidence supporting these events. The widespread destruction claimed in these texts is not corroborated by external sources or archaeological findings. This lack of evidence, however, doesn't diminish the importance of these texts. Quite the contrary, it highlights their significance as theological constructs. These are not mere war stories, but narratives woven with purpose and intention, serving theological and political agendas. They reflect the beliefs, the ideologies, and the aspirations of the people who composed them. So, while these narratives may not have played out exactly as described in the Old Testament, they offer us invaluable insights into the cultural and religious landscape of the time. They are in essence mirrors reflecting the worldviews and values of ancient societies. In the end, we need to approach these narratives critically, understanding them as theological constructs rather than literal historical truths. These narratives, while compelling, may not have happened as described in the Old Testament. Let's delve into the conquest of Jericho and Samson's exploits. The book of Joshua recounts an extraordinary tale. Imagine the Israelites, led by Joshua, marching around the city of Jericho for 7 days, blowing trumpets of ram's horns. On the 7th day, with a great shout, the walls of the city crumbled, and the Israelites took the city. A thrilling story, isn't it? Yet, the archaeological evidence paints a different picture. Jericho, it seems, was likely unoccupied at the time of the alleged conquest. The dramatic fall of the city walls appears to be more legend than fact, perhaps designed to illustrate divine intervention and the Israelites' divine right to the land. Now let's turn our attention to Samson, a man of superhuman strength, whose exploits are recounted in the Book of Judges. From tearing a lion apart with his bare hands to slaying 1,000 men with a donkey's jawbone, Samson's feats read more like a superhero comic than a historical account. His final act, pulling down the pillars of a Philistine temple, killing himself and thousands of his enemies, is an epic tale of revenge and sacrifice. But is it history? Most likely not. These tales of Samson, like many biblical narratives, are believed to be mythical, serving to illustrate theological themes such as the consequences of breaking divine covenants and the triumph of the divine will over human strength. So, what does this mean for our understanding of the Old Testament? Well, it's a reminder that these texts are not just historical records but also theological narratives. They reflect the religious beliefs, political ambitions, and cultural values of the communities that produce them. They're meant to inspire, instruct, and affirm a particular worldview. So, as we approach these stories, let's remember to view them with a critical eye, appreciating their literary and theological richness while also acknowledging their historical limitations. After all, the truth they convey is often less about historical facts and more about spiritual truths and moral lessons. These tales, while fascinating, seem to serve a theological purpose rather than a historical one. Understanding the Old Testament requires critical thinking. This is a fundamental principle we should keep in mind when delving into its rich narratives and complex traditions. The Old Testament isn't merely a historical record, it's a collection of texts shaped, edited, and redacted over centuries. And often these changes were made to serve both theological and political agendas. Consider the war texts like Joshua's conquest or the account of Numbers 31. These narratives, while compelling, are more likely ideological constructs than factual records of historical events. They served a purpose: to legitimize claims, to bolster nationalistic sentiments, to justify actions, and to depict divine approval for conquests. But when we look for archaeological or historical evidence supporting these events, we find little to none. The widespread destruction and conquest these texts claim are not corroborated by external sources or archaeological findings. So what does this tell us? It tells us that we need to approach these narratives critically. We need to understand them as theological constructs rather than literal historical truths. This is not to discount the Old Testament's value but rather to enrich it. By acknowledging the redactions and mythologies, we can gain a more nuanced understanding of its significance and message. Think of the Old Testament as a vast, intricate tapestry. Each thread represents a narrative, a tradition, a law, a prophecy. Some threads are historical, others are theological, and some are a blend of both. Each thread contributes to the overall picture. And when we step back, we see not just a chronicle of historical events, but a vibrant, evolving discourse on morality, identity, and divinity. So when we read the Old Testament, let's remember to look beyond the literal text. Let's explore the layers, question the narratives, and seek the underlying themes. Let's appreciate the Old Testament for what it truly is: a complex and rich tapestry of theological narratives woven together over centuries. In essence, the Old Testament is a rich tapestry of theological narratives woven together over centuries, holding more than just historical events. Let's dive deeper into the ocean of knowledge that is the Bible. Want to explore more about the theological constructs, the vibrant discourse, and the rich narratives found in the Old Testament? There's an opportunity right at your fingertips. You can check out my 3-book bundle, Secrets of the Bible, by visiting the link in my bio. This bundle is meticulously crafted to provide a comprehensive guide to the Old Testament. It delves into the historical context, the theological constructs, and the legendary tales. It provides a critical yet respectful examination of the Old Testament, encouraging readers to question, explore, and appreciate the intricate tapestry of narratives that shape this ancient text. And here's an exclusive offer for our dedicated viewers. Use the discount code LEARN and get an exciting discount on your purchase. This is an opportunity to deepen your understanding and appreciation of the Old Testament. Don't miss out on this chance to explore the secrets of the Bible. Remember, understanding is the first step towards appreciation. Happy reading and keep exploring.